The New York Jets get absolutely eviscerated in Jacksonville. There are many things to discuss, but the biggest thing at the end of the day is the coaching. And we will have a lot to talk about in this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to super chat, jump to the front of the line. My thoughts on Steve Wilks, and is Steve Wilks the biggest problem with this Jets coaching staff? All that and more on Rich Sports Talk. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest videos, and to help us with the algorithm to get us out to more amazing Jets fans. We will have plenty of off-season content coming up, including NFL draft content. Make sure you don't miss on that. And, of course, follow us wherever podcasts are streaming. Super chats, jump to the front of the line. This wasn't competitive. This was a horrendous game. This is a bad look for this coaching staff. And look, I could dissect this game down to every play. I could dissect Brady Cook's debut, and I'll sum this up. I think Brady Cook showed enough today where I feel like he can compete for a backup spot in camp next year, which is what you want. I thought he had some nice reads, some nice plays. But again, when your game script is you're down multiple touchdowns, it puts you in an uncomfortable position as a quarterback. And for back-to-back weeks, he's had to try to play hero ball, and unfortunately, he makes mistakes. But that's what happens when you undrafted quarterback back there. And look, there are so many issues with this team. And for the last couple of weeks, you felt that at least Aaron Glenn had shown you some signs that he was at least building this and going in the right direction. Look, I think Aaron Glenn's got the right attitude, but at the end of the day, this defense, I understand that they had a plethora of injuries today. I understand that they are not talented. But the fact that they do not come out and have a scheme or a game plan, and for the second straight week, do not look prepared at all, especially against an offensive head coach, it is alarming. And look, I thought Tanner Engstrom had some nice plays again, bad plays as well. The 4th and 1 to Breece Hall was a terrible call. But right now, for the New York Jets, we're looking at the big picture. And we could dissect this game, but the big issues are this. And I think it's clear this defense is terrible. I think Steve Wilks should be fired at the end of this season. I don't think they'll do it during the season, but I think that they need to move on to a younger defensive coordinator or someone that can come in like a Jim Leonard type and really ramp up this defense. But the biggest thing I take away from today is I'm very concerned about Aaron Glenn. And we've had this discussions with the start they got off to. And the problem is when you're Aaron Glenn and you make a blanket statement at the beginning of the season that you said that this was a talented team that needed coaching, and this team has gone back the other direction, it's on the coaching. And this coaching has really hurt this team. And the one thing that I get concerned about is I look at it this way. This was an absolutely embarrassing loss, especially on the defense. But Glenn needs to get his fair share of the blame. I think Wilks is the easy scapegoat. But this defense had no answer for Trevor Lawrence, who's a good quarterback, but I don't think he's elite. Have no interceptions this season. But the big thing is I look at this team and you know what? I thought Brady Cook was acceptable. But when you are a defensive head coach, like Aaron Glenn is, if that is your side of the ball, I need to see improvement. And look, Robert Saleh, for as bad of a head coach he was, the two things you could say about Robert Saleh was this. Number one, he always had good defenses. And number two, you saw improvement on the defensive side of the ball. You saw Will McDonald go from being a 3-sack player to a double-digit sack artist in his second season. You saw Bryce Huff go from undrafted player to a 10-sack player that's getting paid multiple millions of dollars for his performance. You saw Quincy Williams go from the scrap heap to becoming a Pro Bowl player. You saw Jamian Sherwood go from a safety to being a possible Pro Bowl linebacker and getting paid $15 million a year. When I look at this defensive team, the thing that is alarming to me, and I know that the argument is they need a lot of bodies, they need a lot of players on this defense, fine. But the thing that concerns me is the regression of this defense. I understand it's a new scheme. I understand there's some square pegs and round holes. But I've watched Jermaine Johnson, who, again, I know he's coming off the Achilles, was a Pro Bowl caliber defensive end, and he looks lost out there. I see Will McDonald, who was a double-digit sack artist, now showing a lack of effort. And I think the big concern is this. The offense is still playing hard because I think that offense believes what Tanner Engstrom's telling them. That defense just quit today. The effort was embarrassing, and all you need to look at is the one play where it's 3rd and 13. McDonald and Jermaine have basically Trevor Lawrence dead to rights, but they can't finish the play. And once he gets by them, you just see them pull up. You just see them take their foot off the gas. I think that this defense doesn't believe in this defensive staff, and they don't believe in this defensive coordinator. And look, maybe Aaron Glenn can be a good CEO coach. Maybe that's his MO if he gets a good defensive coordinator. The problem is, when you come in saying you're a defensive coach, when you've had success as a defensive coordinator, and you look and you come in and you hire Steve Wilks, and this is the defense. I was thinking about this today, and I think it is a good question for you, the viewers and listeners. Again, the listeners, if you're on the podcast. I had a really deep thought watching this game, which, again, your thoughts wander because you didn't want to watch the garbage that was on TV. Legitimately, how many players on this defense are guaranteed to come back next year? I really was thinking about this. I think Brandon Stevens, A.Z. Thomas, Malachi Moore, Jawan Briggs, and Harrison Phillips. I could see everyone else being moved on this offseason. I could see them moving on from Jermaine. I could see them moving on from Will McDonald. I could see them moving on from a lot of pieces. And I understand the counter argument. Well, Robert Saleh's defense year one was horrendous. And it wasn't good. But they didn't have, quote, this talent. And I understand Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams are not here. But you have what we thought was a double-digit speed edge rusher. You had Jermaine Johnson, a Pro Bowl defensive end. You had Quincy Williams and Jamian Sherwood, 2 linebackers. And look, the linebackers were horrendous. And for Quincy Williams, the joke's on him. Ever since that Joker mask, he's been getting burned for 3 touchdowns a day. And Trevor Lawrence, it did not look competitive. That's the sad part. The offense, you can understand. They're on an undrafted free agent quarterback. They're down their number 1 receiver. They're down their number 1 tight end today. But at least with them, you felt like there was some sense of confidence, some sense of urgency, some sense that they believed in what Tanner Engstrom and the offensive staff is doing. This defense looked lost. And Jacksonville's running it up on them today. 438 yards, 330 passing yards, 108 yards on the ground, 7.4 yards per play for Jacksonville. 7.4. No sacks again for the Jet defense. It was just a pure A-kicking today. In 48-20, I almost feel doesn't do it justice. And you look at New Orleans, and now you go, oh, well, how are they going to compete against New Orleans? And you look at this, and I know some people are saying, well, they should fire Wilks after this game. I would, if I'm the Jets, bare minimum, let Aaron Glenn call the defense. Who knows? Maybe he is calling the defense. But if I'm the Jets, I would basically make an announcement like the day after the season. I don't think he's going to move on. If he does, I'll give him a credit. But this is the other problem, too, with this regime. When you say we are going to preach accountability, we are going to hold people to the mark. And you see this defensive coordinator. And Aaron Glenn has come out and said he is not taking away Steve Wilks. We brought Wilks in for a reason. I want him to run his system. Well, his system's crap. I hate to tell you that. Aaron Glenn, very disciplined on number of levels. When you give that many points, that's tough. It doesn't allow our QB to get into a groove. you saw some of the faults in A.D. Mitchell's and Mechie's games. Again, another week where you see a 50-50 ball. They're not really fighting. I just look, I don't think they're going to make a move from Wilks. They're just going to, I think right now this team is just playing out the stretch, and they're going to try to rebuild this defense. And the one thing I will say, it is easier to build a defense than an offense. But man, you have to make massive changes this offseason, because this has been a horrifically bad team. And I understand, as you look right now, the Jets, if you're a Tank fan, have moved up into 5th because of the wins today. I just look at it this way. This defense has a lot of work, and Steve Wilks bears a lot of the blame on this defense. It's just been horrendous. And you look, the OC looks really good. Chris Banjo looks really good. It looks like Aaron Glenn, who, again, probably isn't a big X's and O's guy, is a guy that's going to try to be a personality CEO type of head coach. The issue is you got to hire the right coordinators. I think his offensive coordinator, I've seen a lot of things I like. There's still things to work. But I think Chris Banjo was a damn good hire. Problem is they got to get the right DC. I think there's a lot of great, talented defensive minds out there that I'd look to bring in. And I'll throw a name out right now that I think could be a great fit. And it's an old friend. It's an old alumni. If he gets fired in Tampa, I'd give Todd Bowles a shot, because at least Todd Bowles' defenses have always been consistently good. And it's another guy who has head coaching experience, if you really value that. But look, at the time, I'll be frank, I basically will look at it this way. And again, I agree, Wilks is definitely the worst head coach on the staff, Tony. Glenn's going to get another chance. Like, at the very least, Glenn's going to get another year. But I will say this. If it goes bad next year, I don't think it's going to be a long runway for Aaron Glenn. I know that the Jets are hoping that Glenn's the right coach. Tony with the super chat, jump to the front of the line. Bring back excitement with the Martinez package. I agree. It couldn't hurt. It's better than running an outside edge or zone on 4th and 1 with Brees. You know, and again, if you're a Mets and Jets fan, this week has just been HE double hockey sticks. It has just been freaking horrific. And look, Kev, I agree. I think he's more of the hire the right people, unfortunately. And right now, he hasn't hired the right people. I agree, Mr. Vaughn. The problem is, I just don't think the Jets are they're in any rush. I think they're going to play out the stretch. I think likelihood, this team, especially, unless I think they can beat New Orleans, but who knows? I think they finished with 3 or 4 wins. I think they're picking within the top 4 with 1 pick. And especially after seeing what Phillip Rivers looks like, I feel like they're going to have a mid-teen pick with the Colts. And then you have to make some tough decisions with the quarterback. That's going to be the big thing. And when you look at this game too, this defense just looks absolutely horrendous. They don't look prepared. They don't look to be in position. Like, how many guys are running all over today? And the biggest blame I will give is right now to, I would say, the front office, and I would give to the linebackers. The secondary is tough because there's so many injuries. A.Z. Thomas, of course, was announced he had surgery earlier this week. But the fact that this staff brought back Tony Adams, they brought back Isaiah Oliver. I mean, Bernard Converse is released. I'd bring him back if you can get him out on waivers. They have been absolutely horrendous. But the one thing is the linebackers. Quincy Williams cannot cover. And Quincy Williams, after an adrenaline shot after that benching, appears to have gone backwards. Jamie Sherwood has been a massive disappointment. You can't tell me otherwise. And, you know, I don't get why Brees only has 2 targets. It's really something. Like, again, I would put Jim Leonard at the top of my list for defensive coordinators because, again, I like the way he played. The way I look at Jim Leonard is he's a little bit different than Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn was a first-round pick. He has the talent to play in this league. Jim Leonard was a guy that had to scrap and claw in this league, undersized safety. He had to win with his mind and be a smart player. And that was one of the reasons I love watching him play. I didn't think Jim Leonard was a super talented player. He wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the fastest, but he had that headiness about him, that ability to diagnose plays before they happened or see what was happening in the moment and put himself in the correct position. And again, I'm all for Jim Leonard for DC. Yeah, no sacks. It was just, but again, a lot of this goes down to the effort. I think the effort also is attributed. They don't believe what this staff is doing on the defensive side, because Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald on that 3rd and 13, the effort was just appalling, especially McDonald. I mean, if you're McDonald, I said this coming into this season, and he still could technically get it because you look at where he's had those 2 monster games. If he gets another double-digit sack season, you're looking at a valuable trade piece, or you're looking at someone that's going to get a big contract, because how many guys in this league can get double-digit sacks back-to-back years? When's the last time a Jet player had back-to-back sacks, double-digit sacks? And the other thing, too, is if they didn't feel these guys were the right fits in their defense, then why did they keep these guys? I know Rome can't be built in one day, but if you didn't like Sherwood being an undersized linebacker, you could have let him walk. And I said at the time, even for Jet fans, look, you can be pissed that they let him go, but they don't think he's the right fit, move on from him. If Will McDonald, after a 10-sack season, if you felt he wasn't a fit in this system, trade him. Yes, you'd piss a lot of people off, but you have to get the guys that you think can work. And the big thing I've been looking at, too, is I just look at the progression. I don't think the progression of these players have been good. Has been one to, yeah, I think that a problem is where you see patterns like that, there's a reason. And the way this defense, again, I felt like this defense week in and week out goes in basically with a hand tied behind their back, because I don't think they have a great game plan. I don't think they have a great scheme going into these games. And I think the reason this team had that stretch where they were in games was because the effort from this defense was there. But when you've seen this team go against decent offensive coaches, guys that can build great game plans and scheme guys, look at what the night and day it's been. Look at the Dolphins and look at Liam Cohen, what they've done to the Jets defense. They've undressed Steve Wilks. They've undressed him and pushed him in the mud just for good measure. It has been horrendous. And look, the scheme has not been good. And the thing that pisses me off is the scheme's not working, but they're not trying to make changes. They're not trying to make adjustments. And they're at this weird half situation, because you can tell Aaron Glenn wants to play a ton of man-on-man, guys on islands, blitz everywhere, but this is a team that's built mostly on smaller guys that are more comfortable in the zone. So you're trying to do these hybrids, and it just doesn't work. And the thing, too, is this defense keeps getting worse week in and week out. I mean, all I have to tell you is they have 440 yards of offense today, basically. 330 yards through the air. Forget 7-on-7. They made Trevor Lawrence look like it was a 7-on-3 drill. They're not creative defensively. And the problem is, and you see this, you can get by with not a great defense. You don't have to have the most talented defense if you have a really good scheme and you are coached really creatively. But the problem is, and this is, I think, part of the problem with this scheme they're trying to run, they're trying to be a win-on-talent defense where the players are going to outbeat the other guy and they're going to win. The problem is you don't have those horses right now. And you can say, well, we can add a couple during the offseason. Well, we can add players, but you have to get it right. And when you look at this staff, and I can tell the frustration from Jet fans. And look, if you're questioning Aaron Glenn, you have every right to, because he made the decision to bring in Steve Wilks. He's made the decision to let him run this defense. And more importantly, which is most damning to me, the defensive side is his side of the football. One of the things that I didn't love about Aaron Glenn was another defensive coach. I wanted an offensive coach, especially because I knew you were going to get someone here that had that you're going to have a young quarterback. The other thing I looked at too was the lack of head coaching experience. I wanted someone that had head coaching experience to come here. I've been frank and told everyone who would listen who I wanted on this show. I've been telling you who I wanted basically. It was Brian Flores because of the head coaching experience. But I don't get. Again, they hired him because, again, you hire coaches, they make scheme changes. Don't forget Saleh, when he first came in the first year, it was awkward because they were transitioning from the 3-4 to the 4-3 zone, basically. If they get the right players and they get the right play caller for this defense, I think you can see a huge jump next year. But the problem is Wilks has not worked out. And for the defensive coordinator position, again, Jim Leonhard, I think, could be available. Again, I think he would be a nice fit. And again, the problem is I know you don't know if I'm talking about the Mets or Jets, which is the really sad part of all this, unfortunately. Aaron Glenn needs to be accountable for hiring Wilks. I think he's going to get fired. I really do. The thing, Tony, is I don't think it's going to happen during the season. I don't think it's going to happen basically in season. I think it's going to happen at the end of the season. And look, like I said, I think if you want to show accountability, you have to fire Wilks. And again, now you're going to have that head coaching experience for a year. Get a young guy that's creative, that's hungry, that wants to be a good defensive coordinator. For me, Steve Wilks, you wonder how much is he into it? I mean, he's been fired multiple places. He's been paid. He's been a head coach. You have to wonder how much he has in this. And look, I don't think that they're going to put him on unemployment. I don't think that maybe the last couple games at this point, and this is, again, a frustrating thing. I think the Jets at this point are just playing out the stretch. They knew that they were not going anywhere. They knew they were going into a full rebuild when they basically said, you know, we're giving our two best players on the defensive side. We're trading them. We're moving on from them. And the big thing, though, is especially your Tankathon fan. Again, I want to see this team play hard, but, I mean, the draft pick right now, Jets have moved into the 5th slot. Again, the big thing, the Giants are still holding pat at number 1, which is important. Vegas lost again. Tennessee playing later. Cleveland, another loss. So I look in New Orleans too. That's going to be a big game for the Colts. I think that you look at this and go, they need a big change. They need a big change on the defensive side of the football. And I think it comes from the defensive coordinator. And it's going to be an uncomfortable change. I understand that Aaron Glenn, oops, sorry about that. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Again, looks like we're having a little technical difficulties here on the Rich Sports Talk show. But again, I just look at this and I go, Aaron Glenn needs to make a big decision. JW, a little early. Again, I don't know who's coming out of the draft. Ty Simpson, again, I don't think he's played well down the stretch. I think he should go back to school for another year. Again, we're going to do a ton of draft. I'm actually going to have Draft Expert on Tuesday night doing a lot of draft discussion. And again, we're not going to talk about the quarterbacks in that episode. I want to view the rest of this draft class. And look, I really love Caleb Downs. The Jets, though, they need to figure out the quarterback. That's the big thing. They need to get a quarterback no matter what. It's kind of like that note card. No matter what, we got to get a quarterback. So that, to me, is going to be, without question, the most important position that they have to handle this offseason is the quarterback position. But we're going to have a lot of content this week. Again, doing a little bit of a shorter show today. And look, I mean, I look at what Danger Zone says. Did we play today? I mean, at this point, if you didn't watch the game today, I don't blame you. You turn off the game. Danger Zone, good to hear from you. Hope to hear from you soon. Try to get you on the show as soon as possible. Yeah, you didn't miss much. You missed pain, misery, suffering, and badly defensively coached football. And look, I think that at the end of the day, Wilks will be held accountable. I think this defense needs a new voice in that room, because the other thing too is you can tell us till you're blue in the face that you believe in a guy, you trust a guy. But at the end of the day, when I saw today was the lack of effort on this defense, and that to me tells me they don't believe what Wilks is telling them. They've seen it for weeks now. They know they're not prepared. They know they're not going to have the upper hand for scheming. They know that they're not going to be schemed in the right position. And they're basically playing with a handicap. Again, I think you need a vet and a rookie. I want the vet to be in front of the rookie. And look, I see all these, yeah, I see all these quarterback questions. And again, we'll have a ton of quarterback discussion this offseason. At this point, I have no idea danger zone. I really don't. I think it could. If you had to ask me the way the defenses play, I think it's the Saints. I really do. Again, this is a little bit of a shorter episode today. Unfortunately, I have some commitments tonight, but we're going to have a lot of shows throughout the week this week. So make sure you tune in for more great content. We're going to be talking about the NFL draft with Dom C on Tuesday night, but we're going to focus on the prospects that are not the quarterbacks. Because again, we're going to talk quarterbacks for 4 months. We got to give you some variety on this show. Again, Jets get absolutely embarrassed today. This defense looks outmatched. They need to make a big change. And look, I'm going to spare you guys of Sunday evening because I look at this game and it was just mind-melting. I recommend do something, get in the holiday spirit, watch a Christmas movie or a holiday movie, do something that brings a little bit of a smile to your face because at the end of the day, you deserve it as Jet fans because this was just rough. And if you watch that whole game, I just have to applaud you because that one burned my eyes. I'm surprised I can still see you guys reading the comments with how burning my eyes were watching this game. But look, I think you let Brady Cook play out the stretch. You probably get one more win. Likely finish 3-14, 4-13, and you're picking in the top 4. I mean, there's not much else to say. It was basically the same movie as the Dolphins game, just a different day. And you look right now, this coaching staff, I don't have a lot of faith in. I have more faith in Darren Muji. But this is going to be, like we said, this is a pivotal offseason. They have to get it right because if they don't, they will not be here for very long. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Rich Sports Talk. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our latest contents. And if you missed the show, don't worry. You'll check us out on our next show. And also like us to give us some more love in that YouTube algorithm. And you can also check us out wherever podcasts are available. Again, guys, we'll be back with more content this week. Also, we'll be talking about the New York Mets because, again, it's been depressing. But when they make moves, we will also be on there. We got a lot of great content coming for you down the pike, so make sure you don't miss any of that. Like and subscribe. But until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this has been